questions related to enrollment, the weekly engagement record, attendance. We have some new protocols this year. Please feel free to email me, esteban.hernandez@alesal.org, or call me at extension 2010. Like Mr. Harris said, the priority right now is to make sure those students, every single one of your students, is engaged with you. And if you are needing support to engage or re-engage them, please make that a priority. Build your remote instruction procedures and build that essential classroom school culture and your rapport that is critical as we open a new school year. Have an awesome day and a wonderful first weekend of the school year.
Thank you, Dr. H. And next, Mr. Jaramillo, our Director of Special Education.
The masked man right there. Good morning, everyone. As you know, I just started this role as Director of Special Education. I was a principal at Virginia Rocca Barton. I think one of the things that I miss most is not being able to see the smiles of the kid as they walk onto campus for the first day or the first week. Now I'm tasked with helping out our children that are special needs. So I want to make sure that their needs are met. And I think during this turbulent time, I think it's very difficult for them to be able to engage in a lot of the activities that we're asking of them. I think it's going to take an extra effort from all of us to make sure that we reach out to them, reach out to the parents, and make sure that we are able to help them out. And on top of that, I want to welcome everyone back to a new school year. And I hope everybody has has a great time and is able to work very well with your children and your parents. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jaramillo. Next, we're going to hear from Mrs. Fletcher, Director of Extended Learning and Migrant.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to 2020-21. I am overseeing extended learning and our migrant education program. Those programs are still operating, even though we are experiencing this school closure situation. The focus of both of these programs throughout school closure and throughout the year will be supporting your classrooms. You all are aware that many of your students struggled significantly with the assignments and just engaging with the Google Classroom. So the staff will be working with students from your classroom daily, helping them through the assignments, making sure that they're completing assignments, engaging in your Google Meets, and that is going to be the focus of their roles, is supporting the learning that you are putting in your Google Classrooms and Seesaw Classrooms. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Fletcher. Dr. Gomez, Director of Educational Services and State and Federal Programs.
Good morning, everyone. Buenos dias. Welcome to the 2020-21 school year. I'm really excited to welcome each and every one of you. As many of you may know, I oversee state and federal programs and really looking to see and ensure that our state and federal funding is supporting students, supporting you as educators in these times, especially during this pandemic. And I think one of the huge pieces in really evaluating my role and our role as educational services is helping each and every one of you to really look at our mindset, to see how do we switch from that pandemic learning that we were in from March through June to now true remote learning, and really focusing on the learning that's going to be important for each and every one of our students. Because I think we all know that we need to remember that this pandemic didn't create inequities, it exposed them. So as a team, what will we do to ensure that we provide each and every one of our students the support that they need? So again, welcome to a new school year, and we're looking forward to supporting each and every one of you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gomez. And Dr. Palmer is up next. She's the Director of Multi-Tiered Systems of Supports.
Good morning, everybody. Before I talk about that, I just want to say that I am indeed the director of the multi-tiered system of support, but I'm also having the privilege and pleasure of starting out the school year as the interim principal of Fremont Elementary, and that is truly a pleasure and a privilege. I'm getting to be back in the trenches, albeit without the short people that usually join us. But that being said, I still continue in my role as the director of MTSS, and just wanted to briefly touch on a couple of things because of the critical nature of them. So, of course, we all know that the focus of MTSS is meeting the needs of all of our children, academically, behaviorally, and socially and emotionally. All of that learning is important. Everybody, including our students, has experienced a lot of change and challenge excuse me, over the last several months. And so the social emotional learning piece is critical, even more so perhaps in terms of the support. It's always important for their present and future success. So there's an emphasis there, and our counselors are here to help and to serve in that way. They'll be providing those presentations continually, live ones and recorded ones each month. They'll also continue to provide their tier 2 and 3 supports as well. Your role in ensuring that they have that opportunity by signing up for their presentations and or working directly with them to establish that time that works for your class. PBIS is another thing that falls into my or under my umbrella, and it's always important, right, that we model and support our children's learning in what appropriate positive behaviors are, because that supports, again, their success right now and as they go through life. So it's also critical as we are on a remote learning model, because it's going to establish and support what the classroom culture is like, even while we're distanced from each other, and therefore the student success. So continuing to have those expectations, even though they're adjusted ones, will make learning safe and predictable and positive for all of our students. I'm going to show you something that I do not want you to think I'm indicating is an expectation. It's a suggestion that you might want to look at, want to show I need to present.
So go ahead, Dr. Palmer. You can just start it up and it'll take over the screen.
Okay. Sorry, I don't see that on my thing.
Okay. Well, if you share it with me, we can come back to it.
Okay. Anyway, the gist of it was it's a modified approach to the PBIS matrix that you have been using as a campus, deciding what those behaviors to help your classroom, albeit a remote one, be safe and be respectful among each other. That is really what I was going to get at and share an example of that. So it might be a matter of saying, when they enter class, they're not walking through a door with their hands to themselves and entering quietly using inside voices, but rather they're going to enter class in their own distraction-free space as much as possible. They're going to use equipment appropriately and so on. Then how will they be respectful in whole group instruction when the teacher is providing synchronous instruction, and so on. So the various things that we have in a matrix when we're all on campus for keeping our schools respectful and responsible places of student learning that are safe for everyone, adjusting that so that it will support our students' learning in a remote instruction environment. That's something that will be key as we are now beginning this, and we are rather than being reactive, we are being responsive to the needs of the COVID-19 remote instruction learning model. Thank you and have a great year, and call me if you have any questions or need any support.
Thank you so much, Dr. Palmer. Sorry about that little technical hiccup. So just to show you, that even we in Ed Services, with all our great planning and skills and abilities, don't always get it right, and we have to adapt on the fly, just like we ask you to do. I thought these three directors weren't going to be able to join us today because they had conflict. So first in yellow, there's Dr. Susan Ratliff, the Director of Early Childhood Education. But lo and behold, both Dr. Purnell and Mrs. McIntosh are able to join us. So we're going to go to Dr. Purnell first. So if you would just like to unmute your mic, Dr. Purnell, and it would be great if we could see you as well, and just greet all the people.
Well, buenos dias, good morning. I don't think anyone wants to see my face since they get to look at that picture right there. So thank you, Joss, for sharing that with the entire district. I just wanted to thank the teachers for just being brave and courageous enough to step up to do this work this year. Let you know at the Family Resource Centers, however we can support you in some of that work. We have our online referral that I've sent out to all site leadership. So hopefully it's trickled down to you guys and you have the opportunity to take a look at it. Whether you notice your students may need some supplies at home, their connectivity is an issue, maybe you notice some interesting things in the background that you may have concerns about, please do not hesitate. It's always better safe than sorry. We know that online learning has introduced a whole plethora of some interesting issues that have come up for our students and families. So please let me know however we can help you at the resource centers. And just to note, some of the rent protections and eviction moratoriums that have been in place have been lifted. So unfortunately, you may have some inconsistencies in terms of attendance based on housing. So please help us make that referral so we can get families connected to some protections. And we'll be working again with the Monterey College of Law. So we've got some professionals who can step in a time like this to be able to help us out. And then lastly, every Thursday at MLK, we have a free mobile clinic that's available for families. So health questions, there's no requirement of insurance or documentation. So again, just being really preventative and aware of what's going on inside of the homes and the lives of our students right now is really important. So please feel free, anything at all, reach out. And thank you again so much for taking this adventure on and being present for our families and community.
Alrighty, thank you, Dr. Purnell. And last but definitely not least, Mrs. Yolanda McIntosh is with us as well. She is currently a director on special assignment. Good morning, Mrs. Matt. Could you tell us, could you greet the Alisol family for us? Go ahead and unmute and then take her away.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm not, this is the first meeting I attend, so I'm not certain what my piece is here, but I just wanted to say good morning to everyone. I'm excited to be back. If it's okay, I'd like to just say that I have made an effort to get in touch with most of you. If you haven't heard from me, it means that I've not been able to, but I do have every intention of getting in touch with everyone. What I'll be doing, in case you're wondering what the heck I'm doing, is mainly I'm going to be supporting the staffs that, or the sites that do not have a assistant principal and have SDC classes. So my role there will be to be able to support by going to those IEPs. In addition, I'll be attending all the preschool IEPs that we've, as a district, struggled to be able to attend. The other thing I will be doing is working with Mr. Jaramillo in terms of, I hope you remember last year we did have a internal audit, for lack of a better word, survey in the area of SPED, and they identified some areas for improvement. I will be working alongside Mr. Jaramillo, the distinguished new director for SPED, and we will be working at trying to meet the suggestions or directives that they gave us as a result of that internal study. And whatever else he asked me to help out with, I'm excited to be back. I'm thrilled to see such good people, and I'm happy to be here.
Excellent. Thanks, Mrs. McIntosh, and we're happy to have you. So just as a warning to Mrs. Onso and the rest of the directors, I'm going to stop presenting my screen. So you're about to be on screen as you are live across the district. So game faces, ladies and gentlemen. So thus ends and I'm going to get my own self on camera. So thus ends the portion where we're talking and introducing. We have about 35 minutes left. And George and Celia, do we have some questions? George and
Yes,
or Celia?
we do. So the first question is probably best answered by Josh. We had previously sent out communication about Google Classroom, and so this teacher is asking about how they could potentially link SIS information to Google Classroom that they have created themselves.
Okay, so I can see that question. Thank you, Celia. Ms. Rodriguez is asking about Little SIS, which is the email I sent out today about our Google Classroom provisioning system. If you created a classroom that you already made and the system was able to link it, it will have already linked it. So there's nothing that you need to do. It would have been taken care of in the back end if it were possible. So that's a good question, Ms. Rodriguez. Thanks for reading the email. It's always nice to know that somebody's paying attention. So thank you. George, go ahead.
Josh, this is kind of related to that, and this actually came through an email, probably ahead of this PD. But the question was, can we? They already have a class; it wasn't merged, like you just stated. So they want to know, can we archive that one that was created by Little Sis?
So if they had the option to decline the class, if they decline it or don't respond, it shouldn't be there, and it's fine. If you find it's a little in the way because it's in your classroom landing page and it's sort of like there all the time, you can go ahead and decline it. If you've already joined it, go ahead and archive it. Yes, that's okay. And the teacher can do that themselves, just like you would any of your classes last year. And hopefully at the end of last year, you remembered to archive your prior Google Classroom, because we didn't at the time, and I think we will have that functionality to do that for teachers now. It's a brand new system, so bear with us while we're learning it. But last year we didn't, so hopefully at the end of last year you archived your own class. You can do it in the same way. Thank you.
Dr. Hernandez, we've gotten this question before, so maybe it would be good for you to respond now when everybody is watching. There have been some questions about taking the previous day attendance, because we've gotten questions about looking at the multi-day, excuse me, but still not being able to record for previous days. Could you clarify that?
So yes, thank you, Celia. Yesterday morning, when we asked teachers to take attendance for the first day in Power School, some people experienced difficulty because there was a glitch. When we use programs like Power School, we need to make sure all permissions are on. So I immediately got to IT, and they ensured that the permission was turned on to allow that specific entry to take place, or for people to be able to do it for the previous day. So our intent is to have teachers work on engagement with students synchro and asynchronously, and then capture every engagement experience for all their students in the weekly engagement record or on the weekly engagement record, and then use the information there to determine if a student was absent, to mark that attendance the next day. So meaning a student that did not participate at all, synchro or asynchro, will need to be marked absent the next morning in Power Teacher. Yes, there was an issue that initially was saying you could only take attendance for the actual day, but it actually was corrected, and I got information throughout the morning that people actually were able to go to the multi-day function and select the previous day to mark the absences for kids that did not engage. Again, teachers only need to mark The system in Power School, Power Teacher automatically assumes all students are present. You only need to mark for those that are not present, so absences. If students, one last thing, if students had technical difficulties, but they informed the school, the principal, their teacher, that they're working on getting their device fixed, and the school or teacher is aware of that situation, which limits the student from participating, then that student cannot be marked absent. That student is still present. Because of a technical issue, if they make an effort to connect in some way with the school or the staff, they are to be marked as having engaged to get support. So they wouldn't be marked absent.
Thank you. There's actually a kind of related question to attendance and the weekly engagement record. There's a question from Cesar Chavez Elementary School. In regards to attendance, what do we do if we're having kindergarten workshops? How do we go about doing attendance on the weekly engagement record for that situation?
So I sent an email to all sites explaining that yesterday. We are not, we have a dispensation for TK and Kinder for the first 5 days of school, from yesterday through next Tuesday, because students who participate in their TK or Kinder orientation are present for that day. We're not expecting teachers to participate in a day of orientations with specific appointments, and in addition to that, do instruction for the rest of the kids that may or may have not had their orientation yet. So there is a dispensation for the first 5 days. The only students who would be marked absent are the kids that don't make an appointment or not reschedule an appointment missed. In that case, those would be the only students that you would mark absent, because there's no connection with them. We want to make sure that we are able to engage all students. So if a TK or Kinder student makes their appointment, then there's nothing to mark in Power School for them. Basically, they're present for the first 5 days because that was the connection established.
All right, thank you, Dr. H. Josh, I believe this question goes for you and our department on here. So this has to do with Google Meet. And the question says, is it okay to give out the link to Google Meet, or should we use the code? Last year, my students have used the link, so I switched to join a code. Parents prefer the link for simplicity. What's the district recommendation as a best practice?
The district's recommendation is definitely using the code, and I understand that it's not simple and it's not as easy for parents, but as the questioner states, just giving the straight link can be abused. Using the code, also sometimes called the nickname, provides an extra layer of security and control for teachers. Also, moving forward, Google has announced a new set of features. They have not given us a timeline, so that was really great of them to make us all anticipate these great, awesome, helpful features and then not tell us when they were going to give it to us. But a lot of those features may depend on using the nickname or the code as this person writes. So it's a best practice. It adds better security and better control features. But I would like to remind everyone, but also the questioner, that if you're using the integrated classroom, Google Classroom has an integrated Google Meet link that the teacher can turn off and on, so that it's only available when the teacher is ready to use it. And then kids just scroll to the top of Google Classroom and get it there. And hopefully that will mitigate some of the issues of having to send that out. Now, if you're doing this through Seesaw, then that makes it a little bit, you have to use a link or a code or something like that. But definitely the code or nickname is the other way I've heard it. It's sometimes called.
And a little bit related to that, perhaps you kind of were alluding to these features that Google announced. Teachers asking, where did it go here? When and how will Google Suite make available the record of the record of student attendance in Google Meet?
So unfortunately, I have the when, I don't know, and the how through Google Magic. I honestly don't know the question, or don't know the technical way to answer the question. I imagine it will monitor who enters and exits the Meet and probably drop their user IDs into a spreadsheet with entry and exit times, but that is definitely on the list. It's an extended feature, and we are working to make sure we can keep up the extended features, which including things like recording past the free date that Google has set. So we're going to make sure that we have every possible Google Meet feature. I know the engineers are working really fast and furious on it, and but and those are in a testing phase with Google. So I honestly can't give a date. There are some other third-party systems, for example, like GridView is not native to Google. We add that. There's some other ones that we have tried out, but they're super inconvenient and clunky. And I know some of the EdTech liaisons are trying some other attendance tracking, some third-party tools. And when we have one that we think is A, reliable, B, easy to understand, then we will make it available to teachers. But honestly, we're kind of hoping to forestall that and wait till Google's native feature comes in, because then it's all contained within Meet, and we don't have to teach you how to use one tool and then teach you how to use the native tool later. So I'm sorry, that's a bit of a non-answer, but it's the best answer I have.
There was a question that came in. I'm assuming this is about kindergarten because they're asking, what I'm thinking is about the QR codes that students receive. So TK and Kinder received QR codes to log into both their Chromebooks and to authenticate through the portal. And this question from a teacher at Fremont is asking if they can have copies of those so that they can provide support if any of their students were to lose the badge, for example.
I believe that IT is working with the front office staffs to have like a big master list of the QR codes, not master list, but a big master batch of the QR codes. But those are generated from the Clever system through IT. So it would be a help ticket, or talk to your front office staff and see if they've gotten. The last plan I heard was that the front office staff would have copies as well. I don't know if IT has had time to do that, because anything even remotely related to technology, including like the thermal scanners at the school sites, all that has been put on the IT staff, and they are extremely busy. They're working really long hours. So kudos, and my thanks go out to them for supporting us as well.
All right, so this one comes from Loya. Is there an extension or a way to have breakout sessions for students to collaborate?
Not currently. That's coming as a native feature for Google Meet.
All right, that was easy. So let's add this other one up on here, and it's a little bit related to Meet again, and I think this should be a quick one. Why is it that sometimes, in Meet I see names, but at other times there's only faces with no names? Difficult to learn names this way.
So that's true. You could just make names up for kids, but that probably doesn't seem like a good idea. So in GridView, there's a feature called, here, this will be really meta for a second, but
enable capture mode.
Yeah, it's called screen capture mode. So I'm going to present my Meet for a second. So it's a Meet where I'm presenting a Meet. So here, and I believe this was also in my email. If you look at my email about screen privacy recording, there's a feature here that says enable screen capture mode. So I'll turn it on for a second, and you'll see that all the directors' names go away. I'm not sure why this would be turning on randomly, but double check and make sure you don't have it on. If it is on, turn it off, and then it will, as you can see, the names come back. If that's not it, I would suggest refreshing the Meet, because it shouldn't be doing that. So it's probably a load error if it's not that you have that feature turned on accidentally.
Awesome. We're actually gonna come back to Dr. H. I think people are still having questions about the attendance. So one question, probably going to be quick. This is a kinder teacher at VRB who wants to know what to do if parents opted out of that training. So if they didn't make those appointments, they declined having those meetings, how do they handle attendance there?
I think it's essential that a conversation takes place. I understand that some parents may have hesitated coming in physically for an orientation and declined on participating physically to the appointment. However, if the teacher gets evidence that the parent is willing to spend time with the teacher over the phone in some mode to understand how to log in and get the student engaged, then that would constitute participation. You can do an orientation over the phone and train the parent on the steps if the parent is opting for that option. We need to find a way to get that student engaged. And sometimes it may be over the phone, step by step, with a lot of patience. It may take a little longer. But if the parent chooses that out of personal reasons related to what's going on with physical distancing and fear of coming in person, then that would be appropriate to count that as being present to the appointment, but it'd be an appointment over the phone. I hope that answered the question.
Thank you. And related again to attendance, somebody's asking if you could be able to visually present the attendance procedures, I think specifically highlighting changes. So I'm not sure if that's like something you can demonstrate live right now.
So I don't have a teacher user access as a teacher in PowerSchool. That is handled by IT, information specialist, and I can ask Elizabeth if she would like to collaborate with me in putting together a screencast that we can send out. If the question is specific to PowerSchool, that's what I mean. If it's specific to the weekly engagement record, I already shared a document with a protocol and a screencast showing how to document student engagement synchro and asynchro daily as part of the weekly engagement record. So that email went out to all teachers and is also in the services weekly for our team here and our coaches and the site principals and assistant principals. But clarify, please, if the question is specific to PowerSchool or to the weekly engagement record. If it's specific to PowerSchool, then I'll work with IT to put together a screencast to demonstrate that.
For sure. So that question specifically was coming from a teacher, a third grade teacher at VRB. So if they maybe, like the question just says, basic attendance procedures, highlighting changes. Ms. Cameron, if we didn't answer your question, please make sure to reach out so we can get you the information you need.
Yes, please let her know to call me back. I'll be happy to check in with her specifically or directly.
All right, we are kind of, we only see one more question. So unless any more questions comes in, we'll see what comes up. But Josh, this one goes back to our Google Classroom question, and it has to do with Little Sis. And I think you kind of answered, but maybe just to be clear for this year, because it's a little bit different, is Little Sis created multiple classes, Google Classrooms, and they just want to know, I think what they want to know, they're asking is how do you condense them, but probably what they mean is how do you archive them? I'm guessing that's what they're asking, how to archive them, what you do with those extra classes.
So let me say that that's a little frustrating because we worked very diligently, Michael Ornelas from IT and I, yesterday with the vendor to make sure it was only the homeroom, so you guys didn't get flooded. That was our intent with Seesaw, but it didn't end up working that way. But everyone was supposed to get one. Gosh, I really would have preferred that it went perfectly because that's how I want everything to go, right? So you can't really condense them, like merge them together. You can, I think like you were saying, George, the easiest thing to do is to pick one and say, oh, okay, this one's the one I want to use, and then archive or just ignore the other one. I would say archive it because you don't want to confuse your kids as to which class are we supposed to be in, especially because this is new, right? If you had two and one you just let lie fallow and you were always in one, then they would know that that was the one. But I would suggest just archiving it. I saw another question about if we use the integrated Google Meet, do we still need the nickname? No. If you use the integrated Google Meet in Google Classroom, you don't need to use the nickname procedure because it's already protected as part of the integrated feature. So hopefully that answers those questions as well.
And did you see that last little one about teacher not being, I mean, it might just be specific to the teacher. They can't seem to pin.
I think I do think I know what she's talking about. So I don't think she means pin the tab, right? I think she means pin a speaker or pin a presentation, and that's because grid view is on. If grid view is on, the pinning feature does not work. So simply turn grid view off, click on the little tic-tac-toe board in the upper right so the line goes through it, and then pin, and then pinning will work. Grid view sort of overrides all the other layout features, so that's why it's not working, is because of grid view.
All right, and that is all that we have so far. Let me take one last look.
Oh, one just came in.
Yeah, it says, how do I get rid of another teacher's Google Classroom? I'm guessing maybe you were invited last year on there.
I mean, like, I really feel like I would like more context before I tell teachers how to eliminate other teachers' Google Classrooms, because that seems like maybe not a best practice. I think we maybe need a little bit more context, Miss Fluke. If it's one you were invited to, just decline the invitation and it should go away. There technically, before anybody gets worried, there is no way for a colleague to delete your classroom or to archive it or to make it go away. That's not a thing. So don't worry.
And maybe we need a little bit more information for her. It could be, you know how we always recommended that teachers archive their classes last year? It could be that on the students, their past year's teachers' classes are showing up because that previous teacher didn't archive them. I'm wondering if that could be it. So I'll work with Ms. Fluke on that and get more clarity on that. But that could be an issue, is if you have classes, your students from last year, that their classes from last year's teachers are showing up, you need to archive those. They don't lose their work. The students will always get to keep their work. It's just that it won't show up there on their grid where they have all the classes.
Well, it's and to be clear, the current year teacher can't archive it. It's last year's teacher who needs to do that. So
thank you. Yeah, thank you for clarifying.
Mr. Hadami, I saw that you had a question or a comment.
No, it was right there what George had mentioned, because that was, if you recall, that was one of the issues that we were having at my previous school, where kids were using the prior year's classes to communicate. So I think that probably could have been it.
Good practice to always archive your classes at the end of the year. Remember that you always have access to the resources that you created and the work that your students have done.
So, George, I see that you threatened that we would be done early, and now we have a bunch of new questions. So.
I see that. Darn, I looked over there and I'm like, whoa. Okay, here comes Celia. Celia will pick one.
I actually hadn't even seen that there were all these new ones. Man.
Here's one. It says,
I think you're muted.
Sure. Sorry about that echo. So the question is, this has to do, and this is more for Celia and I, so I figured we could kind of buy us some time on here, is can we get a live PD on recording our lessons? Can we use other resources to record our lessons? I think that's an easy one. We can definitely, we have the tools that we support, but if you just know that if you use any other recording tools, we here in EdTech may not be able to support you. So if you know of a tool that you're comfortable with that does the same thing and you don't need support, officially, I guess, sanctioned support, go right ahead. But we, as Josh has been very clear, is we want to focus on a small group of core tools that we learn really well and try to accomplish our work with those tools so that we're not stretched too thin. Unless Josh, you want to add something to that?
Nope, said it perfectly. We're really trying to not throw a bunch of new things at you but to build deeper skills, deeper proficiency in the core tools we already have. And you see my boss there nodding sagely and knowingly? Yes. So there you go. Which is always why we use the word supported as opposed to approved. We can only support, meaning directly train and be able to help a finite number of tools, and the reason we prefer people use the supported tools is because then the training and the language and the skill set is common across, and we can help you, as opposed to if you get something out on your own and then you want help with it and we're unfamiliar with it, we simply don't have the bandwidth, or the, there's only two tech TOSAs and myself to do this work, to learn to master all these new tools to be able to help you with the tool you found on your own. That said, until or unless there's a specific policy about you may not use things, you can, but we can only support the district supported tools. But yeah, if you have another thing that you can or want to use, as long as it meets all the privacy standards for what you're doing, then you're okay.
That might be related to another question also from Anna Frank Paul, just about logistically trying to upload such large files after recording a Meet session. And there are also a few other questions that I feel are maybe individual, like troubleshooting. A teacher mentioned that some students can't access Seesaw, or needing tech trainings for tech support. So like Josh just mentioned, we're definitely going to continue the live stream PD. We also have office hours. So if there are any like specific questions individual to teachers, just a reminder that we have, George and I have office hours twice a week, Wednesdays, Fridays, 1 to 3. So you're welcome to pop in there and we can probably help you a little bit better if there are individual questions like this.
Just one question for clarity, Josh, that came in from Mr. Cho at Montebello. Thank you, Mr. Cho. If they accepted the class from Little Sis, how long will it take to merge my Google Class and the Sis one? Or do I need to do that myself? Yeah, just for clarity on that one, Josh.
Yep, there's no merging of classrooms. So if you're going to use the Little Sis one, go ahead and just start using it. What might have been misunderstood in the email is that classrooms that he's created, if Little Sis can link to them already so that it can add the PowerSchool syncing, that the Little Sis created ones will sync your roster to PowerSchool the same way Seesaw does, or any of our other systems that work with PowerSchool. But in terms of, what was the term, merge, they're not going to merge into one. Little Sis may to use a very, like a 15-year-old Star Trek reference, may assimilate it like the Borg and suck it and hook it into the system. Thank you, Dr. Palmer, for laughing at that. But it won't like merge them two and create like a new singular classroom. That's not what it does. And we wouldn't want it to do that because you might have separate classrooms already set up, and how frustrated would you be if we just came along and Little Sis said, oh, these are all one classroom now, we're helping. So no, the system doesn't do that, Mr. Cho. If you want to start using the new one, awesome. You're only a few days in, start using the new one. If you want to, if there's like students missing or there are particulars to your situation, please email edtech@aliceall.org and we can, or come to the George and Celia's office hours, which we will email a reminder about today after this meeting or after this live stream.
And perhaps this really will be our last one on here. And this is for teachers or possibly, you know, those of us that provide support services. They want to know, and I don't believe this is possible, if you have, let's say you have a 5th grade class because you teach multiple grades in a 6th grade class, you cannot have that. Those links have to be separate in the classroom if you turn them on, right, Josh? There's no way to just have one link for those 2 different classrooms.
Okay, so I think that she asked one thing and then at the end of your sentence, you said a different thing. So I'm looking at Ms. Anderson's question. And I think when you said there's no way to turn them on for both classrooms, yes, if she has more than one classroom. So here's the question as stated is it possible to have 2 Google Meet links in classrooms so I could hold separate meets for 5th and 6th? And the answer is a qualified no. So the automatically created link integrated into Google Classroom, there is only one, and there's can only be one. However, what you can do is set up a Meet link for, so say you use the automatically generated one for 5th, and then you set up another one and keep coming back to it. And to me, the easiest way to do that would be to create an event in Calendar. But it's not the only way by any means to do that. And to have that be your dedicated Meet link for 6th grade. The other way to do that would be to use 2 separate classrooms. And if you're largely assigning the same thing, then you can, when you create an assignment in Google Classroom, you can assign to multiple classrooms at the same time so that you're not having to duplicate work. And I'm sure that that's covered on remoteinstruction.org under the Google Classrooms page, or possibly in one of the Livestream PDs, or it can be helped in Google Classroom. But automatically integrated Google Classroom or Google Meet links in classrooms, one per classroom.
We lied. There are more questions coming in.
George, you're not allowed to say the last question anymore.
Just jinxing us. Josh, if somebody, oh man, I missed it. There it is. They already created a Google Classroom. Is there any difference between the one that they already made versus the one that came from SIS? Advantage or disadvantage? Any?
The advantage is that there are fundamentally no differences in any functionality other than we know for certain the Little Sis Classroom will sync with PowerSchool. The one they created may sync with PowerSchool.
So question for that, Josh. So when you say will sync for PowerSchool, that means that when a new student gets enrolled, a new student leave, it does that automatically. The teacher doesn't have to do that. Is that correct?
Claro, yes.
Thank you. All right, this one is from Ms. Gutierrez. This is regarding Seesaw. So Josh, it goes for you, and it's actually a pretty good one on here. And she said she might have missed it, so she apologized for that. But it says she tried on the, I'm guessing it's on the student Chromebook, I tried to use the Seesaw icon at the bottom of students' login, but it doesn't seem to work. I'm guessing that you are talking about the shelf on a Chromebook. And Josh, do you want to answer that? I mean, I can answer that one.
No, I want you to answer.
Okay. So remember, teachers, that that for students, our recommendation is that they go through the portal. And actually, I created a TK Kinder tutorial on that, Sally and I did, that actually shows that the easiest way really is all of our students on the top left corner have a folder called, I believe, AUSD Students, and it has these most common used links. And the last link is a link to the portal. If they click on that, it will log them in. What's happening is, anyway, I don't know what's happening in the background, but yeah, that's really the recommended way. And looks like maybe Josh is going to go ahead and show you what that little tutorial is. It is brand new, but hopefully, Yesenia, that will be helpful. I do know that sometimes that icon does work on the shelf, but not always. So that's why the sure way to do it is to always go through the portal, and by using that shortcut that that the students have on their Chromebooks. Josh, you want going to show them something?
Yeah, so here we are on remoteinstruction.org. If we go to the Familias page, George and Celia worked really hard on a tutorial. So if we scroll down to the video tutorials, this first one, TK Kinder login to Chromebooks, and here's the Spanish version. If you actually watch this, there's a couple of, I actually think it's worth everybody watching for the first part, even if you're not a TK Kinder teacher. But these, and it's definitely worth as teachers to watch to see what we are telling your parents. But definitely the first time they ever log into your Seesaw classroom, they need to go through the portal. And what George just said is, so some of the problem with the portal has been they go through the portal to log into the Chromebook. Then when they go to the portal again, the first time they've logged into a Chromebook at a session, it makes them do their password and username again, the user ID and the password again. But there's a bookmark, and you can only see it if you're on a student device. It's a bookmark folder. As George just said, it says like AUSD student bookmarks. You click on that folder at the bottom. There's a little thing that says AUSD student portal, and that'll take them right into the portal. They won't have to relog in. And if they click on Seesaw there, it should make it real easy. But again, this is a resource here for parents, but especially our TK and Kinder friends. You guys maybe should watch this because it was a thing we discovered by working with IT just this year. And it's also good to know what your parents are being shown and told. So there's a good question, Ms. Gutierrez. And no, you didn't miss it.
Mr. Jaramillo has his hand up maybe about this.
Actually, it's a question that I just received. So if I may, I mean, is it possible for me to ask the question that is being asked of me? So I have a teacher that is asking whether we can record synchronous instruction for a child that's either absent or ill, and then provide that video to them at a later time.
So not only can you, but that is part of the teacher guidelines, that all synchronous instruction should be recorded for kids who miss it so that it can become an asynchronous lesson for them to watch later. So not only can you, you should. Not only may you, no, not only can you, you should.
Thank you.
Sure. Whole district just watching me play with grammar. Okay. We have 3 minutes left. So it's not the same as George saying last question, but hurry up, ask us 50 questions for the last 3 minutes.
There's a one for TK for the little ones on here from Estella here. Will SIS link to my Google site TK Writers? I don't think that is correct because I believe, but you can answer that, Josh.
Miss Rodriguez, I'm honestly not sure because I don't know if TK is set up as I hope so is the answer, but TK set up a little unusually in PowerSchool. Like it's set up as Kinder, and then in the Google backend, it's set up, I think, as its own thing. Let me look into that. It's a brand new system, so I'm not entirely certain. And then TK's a bit of a special case in some ways, technically speaking. So I'm sorry, Ms. Rodriguez.
Dr. H's hand is up. I don't know if you see it, Josh.
I do, but he's out of frame, so I don't know what he's doing. There he is.
I was trying to multitask as I was trying to answer the phone without. Just wanted to remind all, is this about my hand being raised?
Yes.
If you have anyone who needs an Illuminate account, a new Illuminate account or a reset, there's a log that was sent to all schools so that I can track for new users that need access to Illuminate. Please connect with your office staff who received the log and or your site admin. It's easier for me to track any users that need to be added or any adjustments needed than to get too many emails just to, I may miss someone if it's not on the log, and it's easier for me to respond back and let them know that their account has been updated or created. So please follow that procedure. It makes it more efficient. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. H, this last one might actually be for you. I'm not entirely certain who this question's for, so I'm just going to go ahead and read it. Ms. Gonzalez asks, I'm assuming we are continuing the practice of taking the STAR test in AR. However, the students need an admin password. It's a statement, not a question, but I think she's asking, how do we do that? And do the students need an admin password? And this is going to be our last question because we're at 9:30. Any question that we didn't get to, especially if it's more individual, the ed tech department will either forward it to the relevant director or we will respond off of a live stream. But AR students.
So to Ms. Gonzalez, I know that most people want to get going with AR. We will be getting more information out to all regarding STAR and how that will be part of our district assessments. And but I will investigate about the admin password question from Ms. Gonzalez and get back to all this morning. And would you rather I do it to you so as part of the Q&A, Mr. Harris, or reply back to all sites directly to admin?
I think
once I get the answer.
I was going to say reply to sites directly, but we'd like to know it because we get a lot of questions about AR. So
I'll copy the team here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so first I would like to thank Mrs. Anso, Mr. Jaramillo, Ms. Fletcher, George and Celia, Dr. Hernandez, Ms. McIntosh, Dr. Purnell, Dr. Gomez, Dr. Palmer, Dr. all the Ed Services Division for being here, for presenting, for Dr. Hernandez, way to mask up and be a good role model. So before we go, I would like to reiterate, as we always do, that for all your help needs, please email edtech@alisal.org. This works way better than emailing any of us directly. Some of you email all three of us, which is great, but this would be a time saver because we all get that email. Additionally, when some of us get stuck in meetings and mobile and on projects, it makes sure that somebody from the department will be able to assist you as fast as possible. Lastly, I'm going to say this and continue to say this at the end of every live stream. Be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and be good to our kids. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend, and goodbye.